I wasn't invited. I was instructed to come. That's what she called it. A formality. Like I was a piece of furniture being relocated from one room to another for aesthetic balance. It'll look better if you're there, she said, applying lipstick in our hallway mirror. But don't be weird. Just be grateful and behave. Be grateful and behave. That was my whole relationship by the end. Like I was some rescue dog she was showing off to her high society friends. She wore black. Always black. Said it was classic. I think it was to make her seem more expensive. I wore a hand-me-down blazer that didn't fit my shoulders, a crooked tie, and a smile I borrowed from someone with dignity. The venue was obnoxious. Glass walls, string lights, tall people with no pores. Everyone drank like they were competing, talked like they were acting, and smiled like they knew something I didn't. Probably that I didn't belong. She didn't introduce me to anyone. Not once. Instead, she handed me her clutch and said, "Go stand over there. I need to talk to the creatives." So I did. I stood next to a fake tree covered in LED blossoms, holding a tiny purse with a pink zipper and a charm that read "Boss Babe." I counted the tiles on the floor, listened to the sound of champagne flutes clinking behind me, smiled politely at people who looked past me like I was a coat rack. At one point, I caught her laughing with some guy in a silver blazer. His hands were expressive. He touched her shoulder. She leaned in. He said something, and she roared. Full open-mouth laughter. The kind I hadn't heard in months. That laugh was a weapon, and it wasn't aimed at me. She didn't even look my way. I wasn't a +1. I was a prop. And the funny thing is, I had already suspected she was cheating. This wasn't my first humiliation, but somehow this was worse. It wasn't betrayal. It was dismissal. She wasn't hiding it. She didn't think she had to, because I was too weak to do anything about it. She had told me 2 nights before, while folding her socks, that I should be thankful someone like her took interest in someone like me. I didn't even argue. I just nodded. But that night, something broke. Not loudly. Not in a firestorm. Quietly. The kind of break you don't hear until later, when the silence starts to echo. I turned to leave. That's when I saw her. Not her, not my girlfriend, a woman across the room. She was watching me. She had watched the whole purse incident. Her wine glass was nearly empty. Her eyes were not. She walked up. Didn't ask my name. Didn't ask why I looked like I was trying not to cry. She just asked, "You want to make her jealous or make her angry?" I blinked. "Is there a difference?" She smiled. I handed her the purse, and we walked back into the party, together. The moment I handed her that purse, Ramsey's purse, to a complete stranger, it didn't feel real. It was like I was watching someone else's life unfold through my eyes. But her name was Aubrey, and she wore danger like perfume. She didn't ask for context. She didn't need it. Her heels clicked like a countdown as we walked side by side back into the crowd. I wasn't thinking. I wasn't plotting revenge or trying to hurt Ramsey. Not yet. I just didn't want to be alone under those lights, with another flute of warm champagne and a plastic smile. So I let Aubrey link her arm with mine like it belonged there. Like we had history. Like I had any clue what was about to happen. People noticed. It was subtle at first. The kind of glances you catch just before they pretend they weren't looking. Ramsey saw us before we even reached the appetizer table. Her eyes narrowed like a cat who just watched a mouse grow wings. She didn't walk over. She didn't wave. She just watched. Aubrey leaned in and whispered, "She's not used to being surprised, is she?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth was dry, and my knees were working overtime to not betray how out of place I felt. Then she did something unthinkable. Aubrey kissed my cheek. Slowly. On purpose. Her lipstick left a mark. And suddenly, everyone saw us. Ramsey appeared behind us seconds later like a ghost in heels. Her voice was light but sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. "Denton, I didn't know you knew anyone in PR." I could have folded. I almost did. I was this close to blurting out some apology, some explanation, some useless, stuttering excuse for why I had wandered away from my emotional leash. But Aubrey beat me to it. She stuck out her hand and said, "We go way back. College days. Denton was my first real heartbreak. Still makes me nervous when he smiles like that." Ramsey's smile didn't break, but her eyes twitched. Just once. I had no idea what was happening. Aubrey was improv theater with a death wish. But I nodded like it was true. Like I was the kind of man who could break someone's heart. And Ramsey, for the first time in months, looked unsure. It was a weird sort of high. A dangerous, shaky, fleeting thing, like standing on the roof of your own dignity. I wasn't confident. I wasn't slick. I was just, finally not invisible. Ramsey didn't blow up. That wasn't her style. No, she played chess, not checkers. She touched my arm lightly and said, "Well, when you're done catching up with your memories, come find me. They're handing out awards soon." Then she left, not stormed off, just vanished like a magician's trick, with elegance, silence, and full intention. Aubrey raised an eyebrow. "Awards?" I nodded. "She's getting one. Community Impact Innovator or something." Aubrey smirked. "Perfect. Let's ruin her speech." I should have stopped there. I should have thanked her, said goodnight, and Ubered home to my half-eaten lasagna and my crumpled self-respect. But I didn't. Because for once, I wasn't Denton the doormat. I was Denton, the problem. And in that moment, it felt better than love. The room dimmed. Spotlights hit the glass walls, casting long shadows across the crowd as the event host tapped the microphone. A hush fell over the rooftop, all except for the quiet clink of crystal and the sound of Ramsey's heels clicking back to center stage. She moved like she owned the atmosphere, that smug smile glued to her face like a signature she'd never change. A man in a designer suit began her introduction, praising her tenacity, leadership, and, I swear I almost choked on my own tongue, her humility. I stood at the back of the room, still arm in arm with Aubrey, who now held Ramsey's purse like a trophy. She was sipping wine, watching the stage with eyes that didn't blink. She didn't speak, and neither did I. But inside my chest, something new was growing. Not confidence, not yet, but defiance. A quiet, boiling kind. The kind you only get after being walked on long enough to feel the concrete grooves in your spine. Ramsey took the mic. She looked out over the audience like she was royalty surveying peasants. She was ready for her moment. I could tell. She had rehearsed this. She probably practiced it in our apartment mirror while I reheated leftovers. Her voice was smooth, polished. She talked about impact and resilience and leading by example. But then, her eyes landed on me, and something cracked. She faltered mid-sentence. Just once. A tiny slip, so fast most people missed it. But I saw it. I felt it. Because the moment her eyes met mine, she also saw Aubrey, not beside me now, but casually running her finger along the inside of Ramsey's designer purse. Slowly, curiously, like she was looking for something important. And that's when it all unraveled. Aubrey didn't say a word. She simply held up a familiar object, Ramsey's phone. The lock screen still showed a selfie of us from last winter. The one where I had red cheeks from the cold, and she had just kissed me right before the shot. It looked sweet, loving, nostalgic. But Aubrey tapped the screen. The phone lit up. No lock. No lock. My heart dropped. I didn't plan this. I swear. I didn't expect to be holding a grenade. But here it was. Unlocked and glowing. Ramsey's phone was a minefield of pop-ups. Text from a contact named C.M. 3 missed calls from Toby Work smirking face, and a recent video thumbnail from someone just saved as Vince. Aubrey showed it to me. Just me. I glanced. I didn't want to. I shouldn't have. But I did. It was a video. 23 seconds long. It had been recorded the night Ramsey said she was helping plan the gala. The video opened with her in the same black dress, in the back of what looked like a car, not alone. Her voice said, clearly, "He's so pathetic. But he makes great pasta. Like a sad housewife." Then laughter. A man's laugh. Hers again. "Let him hold my bag. That's what he's good for." That was the moment. My stomach twisted. Not from shock. Not from heartbreak. From recognition. She didn't just stop loving me. She despised me. I looked up. Ramsey had returned to her speech, but her voice wavered now. Her hands fidgeted on the mic. She knew. She didn't know what we'd seen. Not exactly. But she knew something had shifted. Aubrey leaned close. Whispered, "Say the word. I'll airdrop it to the screens." I don't remember what I said. I don't remember breathing. I just shook my head. Not yet. Not like that. I didn't want revenge that made me like her. I wanted something worse. Something deeper. I wanted her to sweat. So I walked forward, slowly, and handed her purse back to her, right there on stage. The crowd turned. Ramsey froze. I leaned in, kissed her on the cheek, soft, slow, deliberate, and whispered just loud enough for the front row to hear. "Congratulations, babe. You've earned this. I'll be gone by the time you get home." Then I turned. Aubrey followed. And Ramsey stood there, clutching her trophy, with mascara on one cheek and confusion on the other. But the night wasn't over. Not even close. Ramsey didn't come home that night. I didn't expect her to. By the time the gala had ended and she stood there with her makeup sliding off beneath the stage lights, I was already at home, sitting cross-legged on the floor of our shared apartment, staring at the IKEA bookshelf she'd once color-coded like it was a form of art therapy. Her perfume still lingered on the throw pillows. A half-used espresso pod sat in the machine. Her favorite hoodie, which she never let me borrow, hung on the back of the chair I always offered her when she worked from home. All of it still there. Perfect. Unbothered. So I started packing. Not out of anger. Not even sadness. I was calm, disturbingly calm. Every shirt I folded, every drawer I emptied. It felt like I was finally reclaiming time she had stolen from me. I didn't break anything. I didn't touch her stuff. I didn't leave a note or take a last look around. I simply unplugged the router. She had insisted the internet bill be under my name. I think she liked having one thing she could blame on me when it stopped working. I disconnected the smart lights too. Deleted the app from her phone remotely. Logged out of all the streaming services. Changed the Netflix password. Nothing vengeful. Just subtle. Like pulling thread from a sweater and watching it loosen. It wasn't about revenge. It was about absence. Letting her feel it in everything. I left just one thing behind on the kitchen counter. My key, next to a bag of her favorite almond croissants, which she had once mocked me for mispronouncing in front of her family. I didn't leave a message. Just a sticky note on the bag that read, "You were right. I should be grateful." I moved into a friend's place that night, Jesse. He was the only one who had always been weirdly suspicious of Ramsey, but never said anything directly. Just once, 2 years ago, he looked at me after a brunch and said, "You ever feel like she'd throw you under a bus for a better seat?" Now I understood. The next morning, I woke up to 27 missed calls. 12 were from Ramsey. 6 were from her sister. 3 were from a number I didn't recognize. And the rest were from a blocked number that kept trying every 15 minutes like it was running on a script. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my phone to see an email notification. Not from her. From my employer. Subject line: urgent. Contact from third party regarding internal employee conflict. I sat up so fast I knocked over my coffee. Inside was a short message. Someone claiming to be my domestic partner had reached out to HR, stating I had abandoned shared property and left her without internet access, which is interfering with her remote consulting work. She had mentioned emotional manipulation and even attached photos of my key on the counter. That's when I realized she was playing offense. She wasn't hurt. She wasn't even embarrassed. She was rebuilding the narrative before I could. Ramsey wasn't reacting emotionally. She was preparing for war. And she had underestimated the one thing about me she had never paid attention to. I remember everything. I had screenshots. I had receipts. I had voice memos, including one she accidentally recorded during a call with her friend, where she admitted she was using me as a backup plan while she figured out if Vince from Miami was serious. I had emails, Venmo notes, date stamps, all in a folder I had labeled for later back when I still believed we might fix things. Later had arrived, and Ramsey was about to find out that the guy who once cried over missing a couple's pottery class now had nothing left to lose. I didn't respond to her messages for 3 days. Not because I was playing some clever, cold-hearted game. Honestly, I didn't know what to say. What do you text someone who tried to erase you from the version of reality she wanted to perform in front of other people? Do you say I'm hurt? Do you say I'm done? Or do you say nothing and let the silence rot her from the inside? I chose the last one. It wasn't loud, but it was effective. She showed up at Jesse's place on the 4th morning. I hadn't told her where I was, but I forgot that one of her old Bluetooth devices was still paired with my car. She tracked it. The moment she knocked, Jesse was already halfway through yelling, "Nope," before she even said a word. But I opened the door. I wanted to see her face. She stood there in a wrinkled hoodie and oversized sunglasses, holding a coffee she clearly bought for herself but offered to me anyway. Her voice was calm, too calm, like she had been rehearsing. She said she was worried about me and that she might have exaggerated a few things to HR, but that she just needed us to talk like adults. I asked her why she went straight to my job instead of to me. She smiled and said, "I knew you'd overreact if I didn't create a little pressure." That line. That single sentence. It was the final nail in the emotional coffin she'd been hammering shut for months. I let her talk, let her spin her story, let her weaponize vulnerability like she always had. The tears came right on schedule. Big, glassy drops she kept dabbing with the same tissue she used to wipe off her lipstick. Like heartbreak and vanity could be handled with the same tool. Then she asked to start over. I said nothing. I just reached behind the door, pulled out a plain manila envelope, and handed it to her. Inside were printed screenshots. Dozens of them. Texts, DMs, photos, voice memo transcripts. Everything I had gathered over months without even realizing it was evidence. It included one particularly damning conversation between her and someone named CM, short for Corey Mendez, a guy she had always called a married client, who's just flirty. Turns out he wasn't just flirty. He was funding her travel. Their texts weren't even subtle. They joked about me, called me her invisible roommate, laughed about how she trained me to say yes to everything. I watched her face as she flipped through each page. The deeper she went, the more color drained from her cheeks. By the time she hit the photo of her sitting in Corey's car with her hand on his thigh, a photo I didn't take, but found in a tagged album someone accidentally made public, her fingers started to shake. She looked up and said, "You went through my life?" I said, "No. I finally stopped letting you edit mine." She dropped the folder like it burned her. Then came the switch, the anger. She tried to flip the narrative, told me I was obsessed, that I was documenting her like a stalker, that I was clearly unwell. And maybe I was. Maybe collecting all that had been obsessive. Maybe I had turned into something I never wanted to be. But it didn't matter anymore. Because I wasn't playing her game. I was building my own scoreboard. She stormed off. Screamed something about lawyers. Said I'd regret this. I didn't answer. Jessie just shut the door behind her like it was muscle memory. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Not because I had won anything, but because for once, I had stopped losing. And the best part? I wasn't even done yet. Ramsey didn't text me for 2 days after the envelope incident. Not a word. Not even her usual passive-aggressive memes she used to send me when she wanted to say something without saying something. The silence wasn't peace, it was preparation. I could feel it. It was the same stillness right before a thunderstorm swallows the horizon. Then, out of nowhere, she posted a photo of us on Instagram. Not a new one. An old one. A throwback from some vacation we took in Colorado 2 years ago. It was the last trip where I still thought she loved me. I remember because we got in a massive fight on the last day, and I ended up sleeping in the car while she drank wine with a bartender named Eli. She captioned the post. "Not every love story is easy, but it's real." And she tagged me. My phone exploded. Messages from mutual friends, co-workers, even my mom, all asking what was going on, why we were back together, if everything was finally working out. Some of them were actually celebrating in the comments. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about getting me back. This was about controlling the story. She knew she couldn't deny the cheating anymore, not with the evidence I had. But what she could do was muddy the timeline, blur the lines, make it seem like we had ups and downs, like I had just been hurt and lashed out, like we were working through it now. In other words, she wanted to make me look unstable while she stayed sympathetic. And the worst part? She was good at it. The way she spun our story online, you'd think we were some tragic but beautiful couple going through a growth period. She even changed her relationship status back to "in a relationship." She dropped phrases like healing and forgiveness and posted stories of our old date nights as if they just happened. I even saw someone in her comments say, "So proud of you guys for choosing love. You're an inspiration." I laughed out loud in the middle of the grocery store and scared a kid near the cereal aisle. That's when I made the call. I didn't want revenge, not in the way people think. I didn't want to expose her in front of everyone or destroy her reputation. What I wanted, no, what I needed, was to make her feel the one thing she had never once felt since we met: irrelevance. So I messaged a mutual friend, her former roommate, Lauren, the one Ramsey always low-key resented for being too blunt. I sent her 3 screenshots. That's it. Just enough to show what had really been going on behind the scenes. I didn't tell her what to do with them. I didn't ask for anything. I just said, "You deserve to know." By the end of the day, Lauren had quietly removed every photo of Ramsey from her feed. No explanation. No drama. Just deletion. The digital equivalent of erasing someone's existence. Then I started rotating. Every week, I sent one small piece of truth to one person in her circle. A text, a voicemail, a time-stamped receipt. I never sent it to more than one person at a time, never to her directly, and never in a way that looked like an attack. Just whispers of truth. Ramsey's carefully curated world didn't explode. It eroded. Slowly. Silently. Like termites under polished floorboards. She didn't know where it was coming from. I wasn't posting anything. I wasn't messaging her. I was just living. And people began stepping back from her on their own. The invitations slowed. The likes dipped. The comments got quiet. She posted a crying selfie one night, full caption about fake friends and people not being who they seem. She hinted at betrayal. She begged for good energy only. No one responded. Because by then, her version of me, the weak, needy little man she thought she could manipulate, had vanished. And the new me? He didn't need closure. He was just getting started. By the time fall crept in, the leaves weren't the only thing fading. Ramsey was trying everything. She had stopped pretending online. No more curated love posts. No more inspirational quotes in pastel fonts. No more humble brags about growth. Instead, she went fully rogue. Late-night rants on close friends' Instagram stories. Vague threats about people messing with the wrong woman. She even made a burner TikTok. And yes, I knew it was her, because the second video featured our old living room couch and a dramatic monologue about emotional parasites. It would have been hilarious if it wasn't so desperate. But what really did her in wasn't me. It was quiet neglect. People didn't fight her. They just stopped showing up. Her friends weren't reacting to her posts anymore. One of her ex-co-workers, a guy she once bragged about manipulating into writing her recommendation letter, had apparently shared screenshots of his own texts where she joked about using him until I get my own name printed on a lanyard. Word was getting around. She had spent so much time curating her image. She forgot the foundation was made of people. And now those people were vanishing. Meanwhile, I was doing fine. Not amazing. Not suddenly thriving with a six-pack and a new girlfriend like some cliché redemption story. But I was okay. I was sleeping. I was eating real meals. Jesse and I started jogging twice a week. Well, he jogged, I wheezed. I went back to therapy, where I finally admitted how long I had been twisting myself to fit a relationship that never actually saw me. And I was still releasing pieces of truth, one thread at a time. Not publicly. Not to shame. Just setting the record straight. Correcting the lies she'd laid out like traps for sympathy. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't mean, but it was real. And real, I learned, is like acid to fiction. Then came the email. I got it on a Wednesday. No subject line. Just one sentence inside. I thought I could break you before you realized you were holding the scissors. No name. But I knew. The sentence was too poetic to be from anyone else. That was Ramsey's last move. Not a threat. Not a plea. But a surrender wrapped in metaphor. She knew I wasn't coming back. She knew the version of me she kept in her life, quiet, obedient, grateful, had died somewhere between the gala and that crumpled envelope she left on Jesse's porch. But I didn't reply. I had learned something important by then. That closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you take when you finally stop asking permission. I let the email sit in my inbox. I archived it the next day without ever opening it again. And then I lived. I changed my number. I finally deleted the cloud album where our photos lived. I threw out the couple's cookbook we never actually used because she said garlic was too aggressive. I moved into my own apartment. Tiny, old wood floors, bad water pressure. But it was mine. And it was quiet. One night, I ran into Aubrey at a bookstore downtown. Yes, that Aubrey. The woman who played chaos with elegance at the gala. She didn't mention Ramsey. She didn't ask for details. She just smiled, bought me a coffee, and said, told you she wasn't used to being surprised. We didn't fall in love. We didn't ride into a sunset. But we sat for hours, talking like people who knew what it felt like to be used up and misread. It was good. It was simple. And when I got home that night, I sat down, opened my laptop, and started writing this story. Not for her. Not even for you. For me. Because the truth matters, even when it's quiet. It's strange how healing doesn't look the way you expect it to. I thought it would be fireworks. Some big moment where the pain vanished, the shame dissolved, and I stood triumphant with a brand new life and a slow-motion breeze catching my perfectly tailored jacket. You know, like the kind of ending you see in movies where the guy finally gets it together and shows the world what he's made of. But the truth? It looked more like me cleaning out a junk drawer at midnight while humming to an old playlist we used to share and realizing I didn't flinch when her favorite song came on. That's how healing actually arrived, silently, like it didn't want to wake anyone. By now, Ramsey had faded from every corner of my daily life. No more strange emails. No more triangulated contact through mutual friends. I heard from someone that she moved cities, took a contract job somewhere in Chicago, and was going off the grid for clarity. Maybe that was true. Maybe it was just her last performance. But I didn't care. The stage was empty now, and the audience had gone home. I had stopped checking her socials. Stopped asking mutuals about her. It wasn't resistance, it was just disinterest. The kind that comes after you finally realize you were never the villain, only the extra in someone else's play. I didn't want revenge anymore. I didn't even want closure. I wanted stillness. I wanted my own life. Mine, not borrowed, not filtered through someone else's ego. And little by little, I built it. I started taking solo weekend trips. Nothing extravagant, just nature, books, music. I got into photography, not to post, not to prove anything, but to remember that I could see beauty without needing someone else to validate it. I even got my own cat. Her name's Olive. She doesn't care what I've been through. She just wants tuna and a warm lap. It's the healthiest relationship I've had in years. Aubrey and I stayed in touch. She wasn't a savior, and I didn't want one. But we met up now and then, shared stories, laughed, and one day, after a long walk through a rainy park, she looked at me and said, "You know you're not a background character anymore, right?" I smiled, because I did. Ramsey once told me I should be grateful to be with her, that I was lucky to stand beside someone like her, that I didn't belong in her world. But now, sitting in my own apartment, sipping coffee from a chipped mug I bought on purpose because it made me laugh, I finally understand the truth. I wasn't lucky to be with her. She was lucky I stayed as long as I did. And I'm grateful, not for her, but for the lesson, for the clarity, for the way rock bottom introduced me to the version of myself I was always too scared to become. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone else's life. It's quietly building a better one.